So, page 78, Hinei Yamim Ba'im. Okay. Can you put your shoes near the entrance of the Okay, so show the two of you can share and to make a little more space. Okay, Hinei Yamim Ba'im. And so there's a prophecy in Amos. Hinei Yamim Ba'im Num Hashem Elokim. Vishlachti L'Ra'av Ba'aretz. I'm going to send a hunger to the land. Lo Ra'av L'Lechem. It's not a hunger for bread. V'lo tzama l'mayim. Nor is it a thirst for water. Ki im lishmoa dvar Hashem. But just to hear the word, divrei Hashem, to hear the words of God. So that's a prophecy. So it says Reb Shlomo Zohi Nevuah L'Chol Ha'olam Kulo. This prophecy is a prophecy for the entire world. In other words, it's the Meser Mikol Yiladenu Elenu Ha'avim. It's a message that Amos is giving to all parents, a message from their children. This verse is talking about our generation, our children, who are crying in their sleep. They're begging when they're awake. And they're waiting. They're still holding on somehow with the little bit of strength they've got. And what is it that they're wanting? They're wanting the Shmoa Divrei Hashem. They're wanting to hear the words of God. So I don't know exactly when Reb Shlomo gave this particular teaching, but I think it was somewhere like around the. He doesn't provide the information over here, but it was probably sometime around the 70s. Last century. You heard of that? Last century, yeah. Okay.
I think it was probably the part of the 70s that was still influenced by the 60s.
So he says like this. In other words, what happened was that in the 60s, there's an anecdote that's brought that a lot of Jewish kids started going to the East. A lot of Jewish kids started, going to India, and these gurus started showing up in America. And Rav Shlomo once said, he brought a teaching from the Ishbitzer. The Torah says that a Kohen is not allowed to go to a cemetery and to participate in a funeral unless it happens to be one of 7 immediate relatives. Okay? Now, we don't know, there are laws in the Torah that we call chukim, laws that we don't know the reason for them. For example, you don't know why animals that have split hooves and chew their cud, why they're kosher versus other animals are not. We don't know the reason for that. It's a chok, it's a law. Okay? We don't understand why certain things are tamei, certain things are tahor. It's a chok. Okay? But what's interesting is that even though we don't understand it, it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to try to understand a little bit about it. You understand? It's not like, oh, this is a chok, and therefore you're not even going to try to understand it. What you cannot do is you cannot say, oh, I now know the reason. Now maybe you've got an insight into it, but you cannot say that, oh, this must be the reason. It's a chok. Okay? So why are Kohanim not allowed to participate in funerals? So again, it's a chok. It's the laws of Tumah and Tahara, but nevertheless, the Ishbitzer does provide an insight. Okay, and he gives a parable. The parable he gives, the Ishbitzer is, by the way, in Pakshat Bahar. The parable that he gives is that a king tells his chef, he says, listen, I want you to be in a good mood when you're cooking my meals. I don't want you to be in a bad mood. Okay? Like every modern chef knows that the mood that the chef is in affects the food and so on, right? So he says, I want you to be in a good mood when you make my food. So it's like Hashem is sort of, so to speak, saying, you have a particular job, and in order for you to do this job, I need you have to make you can't be angry at me when you're doing your job as a Kohen. Here, give you another chair. There's a chair here. Come pull it up, okay? You can. You must not be angry when you're doing your work as a Kohen. Okay? What's the job of a Kohen? The job of a Kohen, the word, the noun is Kohen, the verb is the Chahen. The Chahen means to serve. What is a Kohen basically doing? The Kohen is helping us with our relationships with God. Right? She's about Kohen, so she knows this, right? A Jew wants to come closer to God. He comes to the Beit HaMikdash, brings a sacrifice. The Kohen's job is, like, let's say he's bringing a sin offering. The Kohen's job is like to have a little discussion with him, help this person do his tshuva, help him come closer to God. That's what a Kohen is all about, right? He's not just a butcher, slaughter the animal, put it on the altar, and although much of the work that he does is exactly that, right? But that's not the essence of his work, okay? I mean, that is the essence of his work. I shouldn't say it's not, but I'm saying, but a big part of the job is to help us in our relationships. So let's say a Kohen goes to a funeral. Not everybody dies at age 99 or older. Sometimes you go to a funeral and you have no idea, you have no understanding, why did God do this? Chas v'sholem, why did this, God forbid it's a child, or God forbid it's a pigua, or something like that. And it's very, very possible that by going to the funerals, the person attending the funeral is going to get angry at God. Can't really avoid it sometimes. Okay? So the Ishbitzer says, Hashem is saying to the Kohanim, this is a part of life that you cannot get involved in. Because if you're going to get angry at Hashem, you're not going to be able to do your job as a Kohen.
Isn't part of having a relationship with God being able to get in your hands?
Yeah, but so there are times that a Kohen does go if it's his immediate relatives, understand? But the Kohen because he's a Kohen, because of the work that he needs to be doing, he cannot do it if he's Tamei. Okay, so there are times that he's going to be Tamei, but otherwise, it's a part of life that, you know, it's like we have to deal with it in one way, okay, but the Kohen has to deal with it in a different way. So that's an explanation that the Ishbitzer is offering, okay? Again, he's not saying that this is the explanation behind this chok. It remains a chok. It remains a law that we hold on, please. It remains a chok that we don't really know the reason, but he's presenting an idea over here. Okay, the idea as an idea in itself has validity. So Rav Shlomo said, why is it? He put it this way: why is it that in the 60s these gurus started showing up? So he said that after the Holocaust, all the rabbis, all the teachers of Judaism basically became Tamei. Now we're always, until the Beit HaMikdash comes, we're all Tamei anyway. Okay, we don't even get what it means to be Tahor. Okay, but the way, so what Rav Shlomo said is as a result of the Holocaust, there was nobody really around, with the exception of 1 or 2 or 3 people, that could speak about God with love. And the American kids growing up, they wanted to hear about God, but they wanted to hear about God with love. So it's at that time that Hashem sent some teachers from the East who could speak about God with love. Problem is that among the gurus that came, there were those that were holy people, and there were many that were very not holy people. And the difference between, Rav Shlomo said, the difference between a holy one and a not holy one is that the holy ones would take a Jewish kid, would take a Jewish student who was Jewish, and they would teach them for a year or whatever. And after a year, they would say to the guy or to the girl, "You're a Jew. Go home and be a Jew."
Yeah, I've heard stories like
okay? The not holy ones would sink their claws into them and not let them go. Right? So that's a yes.
So you're equating tum'ah with anger?
So in this particular case, the Ishbitzer is equating tumat mate, the tumah of dealing with a deceased person. He's equating it. He's not equating it. He's saying it's going to lead, or it can lead people to be angry at God. 1 second, I see. It can lead people to being angry at God. Okay, and a kohen whose job it is to help us in our relationship with God will not be able to help us if he himself is angry at God. Yes.
It said relates to another aspect of Kohen, which is connected to what you were saying.
1 second. There's a bunch of cups over here and a small table. I forgot to put the cups on the table. Okay?
There's a bracha that the Kohanim say. The Kohanim also bless the people.
Birkat Kohanim, yeah.
Birkat Kohanim, just as the Kohen Gadol blessed the people. Another aspect of Kohen, and help it connect the communication between the people and Hashem, is the Kohen would be a conduit.
You see the plastic cups there in that box there on the edge? So just put a bunch. 1 second. Please put a bunch of cups on the table, okay? And yeah, you know where they are. You go into the kitchen, the immediate cabinet the first cabinet on the right. There are 2 more pictures like this. Okay. Thank you. Yes.
The Kohen has another job, and that is to bring Hashem's love to the people.
Which is
And
relationship,
the bracha is Hamavarech et Amo Yisrael ba'ahava.
Bashal. Yeah.
B'ahava.
No, the bracha is the Sheket Shana B'Sofet
Mivarech et Amo
Yisrael
Yisrael
B'Ahava.
b'ahava.
Right.
Okay, so both in other words, sanctified us by our commandments, the Kohanim say, to bless the people with love.
Right.
And I'm a Levi. You try to be the first Levi of the sect every time. And so I understood that therefore the Kohen has to really be in sync with love to do this. I'm very much environmental. Try to save water at every opportunity. And one time when I filled the cup with water, I didn't fill it all the way. I gave him a little bit of water. The Kohen took the cup from my hand, filled it up to the top, and washed his own hands. I understood he was angry. It was the last time I ever did that.
So
I never did that again.
What's the point?
I understood that what I was doing is I was blocking love. I was interfering with the love.
Okay.
Therefore, I never did that again. The job of the Kohen is to be loving.
Yeah. Flowing, yeah.
Well,
now that we don't have the base and Mikdash,
we're all tamei.
What is the function of the Kohen?
It's still to give brachot, but even though we can't keep all the laws perfectly, we still try to keep them as much as we can. You understand? If we can, why do we do Netilat Yadayim, right? So in order not to the hands, no, but when we eat, right? So to remember the laws of Tumah and how that when you're eating Trumah that you have to have hands that are tahor. In a sense, so we practice these things anyway, but we don't really know what it means to be tahor because we haven't been tahor in a long time. Okay? Thank you. Okay? So, Shalom Lachem Rabotai. He says, אני בטוח שאתם מכירים את הפסוק הזה, I'm sure that you know this verse. זהו פסוק מעמוס הנביא, it's a verse from Amos. אנחנו חיים בעולם רעב, we're living in a world, we're living in a hungry world, עולם מאוד רעב, a very hungry world. ואתם בטח יודעים שכאשר אתה רעב ללחם, אתה נהיה מכוער. And you for sure know that when somebody is hungry for bread, a person who's starving becomes a little bit disgusting. Right? And כי אתה כל כך רעב עד שאתה לא יכול לסבול את זה, because the person is starving so much that he cannot tolerate it and he loses all sense of what's appropriate. אך כשאתה רעב לקדוש ברוך הוא, ככל שאתה יותר רעב, but when you're starving for the Holy One, blessed be He, the more you are, the hungrier you are, אתה נהיה יותר יפה, you are more beautiful. Okay? Sounds a little bit paradoxical, but we'll understand it in a couple of minutes, right? So he goes down and he says like this, אנשים שרעבים ללחם שונאים אחד את השני. What does it mean that people who are starving become disgusting? Because they hate one another. They're constantly afraid that somebody's going to take their piece of bread away. But people who are starving, who are hungry for God, they understand how special it is, what a merit it is to be able to help someone else experience that hunger as well. When you're hungry for bread, you're mamash empty. But when you're hungry for God, you're really full inside. The truth is that there's only two kinds of people in the world. There are those that are empty inside and they're starving for bread. And there are those who are full inside and they're starving for God. Okay, so it sounds a little bit paradoxical. Let's try to understand it. there are certain things that if the more you have of it, the more you want, right? People think that, why do rich people, why do they keep on working for more money and for more money? Because they like it. It's, what are the reasons that the rich person is rich is because they really like money. So they make the effort to get more and to get more and to get more, right? But in general, when it comes to material things, when you don't have it, if you're lacking it, if somebody's starving, so everybody becomes your competitor. Everybody's like, like I better grab that because somebody else might take it. I better grab that, somebody else might take it, right? And on the other hand, so what that means is that the person is like he's empty inside. He feels empty. He feels he's got to grab. He's got to take it away from somebody else, get there before somebody else gets it, right? But if you are experiencing beauty and joy and Hashem's wisdom in your study of Torah, for example, right? So after learning for an hour, like Michal does sometimes, he says, let's learn for another hour. Okay? He said that very often, right? In other words, the more you have of it, the more you want it, right? In other words, you don't feel satiated by having learned, you feel, I want even more, okay? I heard from Rabbi that when a student would come to the Vilna Gaon and he wanted to be accepted into his yeshiva, he had a very interesting admission test. He would tell the young man, he would say, here, take a passage of Gemara, and let's say they pick 10 lines or whatever. He says, sit down and prepare this. And at some point, I'm going to call you and we'll talk about this passage. And what the Gaon was really doing is he wanted to see how many times is he reviewing this passage of the Talmud. Okay. Now, usually, like any one of us, you learn a piece of Gemara 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 5 times. At some point, you say, "Oh, I got it. I understand it." Right? And so the Gaon will be watching to see what's happening with this person after 5 times, after 10 times. Is he going into it even more? Is he going into it even more? Is he going into it even more? Right? Right? Like for example, in your schooling, right? If you really are trying to understand medicine, right? So let's say you come to a point where you say, "Oh, I get it, but I want to know more," right? And I want to know more. I want to understand it better. I want to know more, right? If you're really into it, right? So he's saying that if you really it's paradoxical. The more you're learning, the more you're filled with the knowledge of God, the more you want it, the more you experience the hunger to get even more. No, I know. I'm saying. So, it's okay for now? Yeah. Okay. So he says, "Ani batuach shelamadetem neviim." I'm sure that you studied the prophets. אבל אני לא בטוח אם ידוע לכם שהנביאים לא היו שלפרים קטנים שעמדו בפינות הרחוב בירושלים. But I'm not sure that you realize that the prophets, they weren't just like schleppers, little schleppers standing at the corners of the streets in Yerushalayim, reivim l'lechem, hungry for bread. As a matter of fact, for example, Yeshayahu, he was first cousins with the king. Then he was royalty. A lot of the prophets were like coming from really well-to-do royal families. Okay, especially before the destruction of the second temple, the prophets were among the richest people. They were people that were complete in every respect. In other words, they were well educated. They highly intelligent. They had everything that you might want to have, right? מבחינה פיזית, שכלית, רוחנית ואלוקית. They were physically healthy people. They were intellectually and spiritually and divine, all on the highest levels. The prophets used to have schools for prophecy. There used to be yeshivot, like, thousands of people would go to special yeshivot to study prophecy, like you did, just waiting for them to come back, right? There were thousands of students in these schools, and they were also musicians. If you remember, the first time that Shaul has a moment of prophecy, it says there that he met up with a group of prophets and they were playing music. Music was very, very much a big very much a big part of the prophetic experience, to open you up, like, to receive prophecy. Okay.
How can there be a school of prophecy? I thought that God chooses the prophet. But you go to a prophet school and then you graduate, then God gives you an award. No, I'm not making a joke.
No, you're not making a joke. I know it's not a joke. You're asking a very good question.
It's like Hogwarts.
Huh? What?
It's like Hogwarts.
Hogwarts? What's that?
Harry Potter.
Oh,
The school that Harry Potter went to.
I see. I didn't read the book.
I heard it is hard work. He said hard work.
Uh-huh.
It's
It's
also
like-
hard-
It's like
also
you're
hard work.
born a witch or a wizard, but then you
Right.
still have to go to school to learn how to use it.
Uh-huh. Well, I don't know the answer to Michal's question. The only thing that I could say is that maybe part of the training was to learn how to be in the space to be able to receive prophecy. But whether you would receive or not didn't depend on whether you got a degree or not. That would be a matter of whether Hashem is giving you the prophecy or not. But to be in a space to receive it, I do have a sefer upstairs that actually has a whole chapter on that. I haven't learned it. It's I think from Reb Chaim Vital. It's called Shari Kedusha, and it's got 4 parts to it. And basically, they didn't used to print the 4th part, which is Shari Nevuah. They used to leave that part out, but now they're printing it with the Shari Nevuah also. So, if you want to read it overnight and come back, and
Is it in
it's in Hebrew. It's in Hebrew. Yeah. Okay. So he says like this: Eich mekavlim nevuah. Says Reb Shlomo, how do you receive prophecy? אתה לא מקבל השקעת נבואה סתם ככה. You don't have a prophetic experience. You don't have what's the word for hashka'a? Inspiration. You don't have a prophetic inspiration סתם ככה. פתאום כשאתה עומד ברמזור אדום, it's like, you're at a red light, and all of a sudden you get this prophecy. הנביאים היו מנגנים ושרים, the prophets would be playing music and singing. ואז נפתחו שערי שמיים, and then the gates of heaven would be opened, והם התחילו להתרבה, and they would start prophesying. כל אחד שהקשיב לנבואתם, לא סתם הקשיב להם כמו לרדיו, and anybody listening to them was not just simply listening to a radio broadcast, אלא בדרך כלל, so you can see already this is talking about radio broadcasts, this is from the previous century, okay? אלא בדרך כלל, מי שהקשיב התחיל גם הוא להתנבא בעצמו. It says that the people who were standing around with the prophets, by hearing the prophets, they too would start to prophesy. כי נביא אמיתי הוא לא אחד שאומר, אני זכיתי לנבואה. A real prophet is not somebody who would say, oh, I merited to receive the prophecy, אבל מי אתה שתזכה לנבואה, but who are you that you should merit prophecy as well, גם כן. אלא הנביאים האמיתיים רוממו אותנו במקום הכי גבוה. What was happening was that the real prophets were raising us to a very high place so that we too would be able to have that experience. Okay. I wish I could tell you more, like when, yeah.
We have an example of that with Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe asked for some help, he says it's difficult, so he got to take 70 elders. So, but there were two that were not called up, and they were started prophesying in the camp, and Yeshua wanted to lock them up, put them in jail, and Moshe said, "It'd be wonderful if everyone would be prophets."
Right.
In other words, he was empowering. It reminds me of what the
No, you're drawing conclusions now. It's not that he was empowering. There was there was a specific thing, but yeah, you're right. The example is very good. Okay, let's read on it, okay?
So then we can understand that one doesn't have to go to school for a nevuah. The nevuah would just come. Eldad and Medad.
It didn't. See, over there was what Shaya is referring to is that parsha over there. That Eldad and Medad is that what happened was, it says clearly there about Tzelti min haruach asher alechat. God says, I'm going to take from the spirit upon you, and I'm going to put it on them also. Understand? It doesn't. It's not an example of Moshe Rabbeinu saying nevuah right at that time, and they too were inspired. It was a specific thing that there was a goral. 6 people were chosen from each tribe. That makes 72. You understand? And Hashem chose 70 of those 72. Okay. So he says, "Lama Amos hanavi hachlit l'shatef otanu b'nevuah hazot." So the question is, why did Amos share this? Why did he decide to share this prophecy with us? Lifnei 2000 shana, 2000 years ago. Harei kishiyavo hazman nigale et zeh. Why does he have to tell us that there's going to come a time when there's going to be a starvation for the word of God? When it'll happen, we'll know that it's happening. Right? Usually prophecy is that the prophet is telling you something that you wouldn't know otherwise. You wouldn't expect it otherwise, right? So he's letting you know, listen, such and such is going to be taking place, right? If this is going to be happening, so when it happens, we'll know that it's happening. So why is he telling us that this is going to be happening? Rabotai, tiftechu et libchem, open your hearts. Hanavi mevaser lanu shiavo zman sheyeh ra'av mamash gadol ba'olam. The prophet is letting us know that there's going to be a time, there's going to be a real big hunger in the world. Anashim yiyu kol kach reivim. People are going to be so hungry. V'hanavi omer lanu du'u davar echad. So the Navi is telling us, know this one thing. B'oto zman, at that time, k'sheyavo elecha mishu v'yomar shehu ra'ev l'lechem. When this is going to be happening and somebody's going to come and say, I'm hungry for bread, al tamin lo, don't believe him. He's saying that he's hungry for bread, but what he's really saying is that he's hungry for God. Okay? When your neighbor knocks on the door, and wants a few eggs to bake a cake. You know what he's really saying? He's wanting to tell you, Gewalt, kama ani ra'ev, ani kol kach ra'ev lekama milim k'toshot. He's coming and saying, I'm so hungry for a few holy words. Kol kach ra'ev lechaver echad tov. I'm so hungry for one good friend. Ani kol kach boded. I'm so alone. Hayim tuchal lechabek oti. Can you give me a hug? כשמישהו עוצר אותך ברחוב ושואל, we're on page 80, second line, כשמישהו עוצר אותך ברחוב ושואל מה השעה, when somebody stops you in the street and says, what time is it? אתה חושב שאין לו שעון? You think he doesn't have a watch? Nowadays, people don't have watches. It's true, they have their phones. But you think he doesn't have a phone with him? Right. אולי יש לו שניים, he might even have 2 watches. אלא שהוא באמת רוצה לומר לך, but he's really trying to tell you is, החיים שלי אוזלים והולכים, my life is passing me by, אני כבר לא יודע מה לעשות עם החיים שלי, I don't know what to do with my life anymore. תאר לעצמך שאתה עומד ברחוב ליד בית מספר 22, imagine standing at an address number 42, מישהו שואל אותך, איפה בית מספר 44? And they say, where's number 44? אתה חושב שלא יודע לקרוא? You think the guy doesn't know how to read? אלא שהוא באמת רוצה לומר לך, but he's really trying to tell you is, אני כבר לא יודע לאן ללכת. I don't know where to go to anymore. You hear what he's saying? He's saying that when people ask you for something, try to listen to hear what they're really asking you for. Okay. In other words, they may be saying that they're hungry for some bread, but there's going to be a time where people they just don't know how to say I'm hungry for God, so they say they're hungry for bread. People say, "What time is it?" Well, you can't figure it out. You don't know. You know, what they're saying is, they're saying I've messed up. I've lost so much time. I don't know what to do anymore. You know, can you help me figure it out?
Freud says that sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Maybe people are asking what time it is.
The brilliant, yeah, absolutely true. He's not saying that every time that somebody says, "What time is it?" that they're necessarily asking for something deeper.
I don't know, they kind of are. I mean, if you don't know what time it is and you're concerned,
right?
You have some place to be, or you don't even have another question to ask. So you ask, like, "What time is it?" You know, and then as soon as you get in a convo, like, nobody's ever stunned just saying what they're saying. No way.
Well.
No.
Look, I'll tell you. That by the sons of Rebbe, I heard a story that there was this chassid there who used to sit in the beis medrash all the time, and like he was always trying to read into everything that the Rebbe did, you know, to see the deeper stuff. So one of the descendants of the Sanzer, the Gorlitzer, decided to teach him a little bit of a lesson. So the guy, this man had fallen asleep on the bench in the shul. So he went and he took some of the soot, you know, from the candles, and he put the black stuff all over the guy's face. And then he woke him up and he says, "The Rebbe wants to see you." So he goes running to the Rebbe's room, knocks on the door. The Rebbe opens up. And he looks at him, he says, "Why is your face so black?" So he says, "Rebbe, that's why I'm here. Like, you know, you see all my sins, like, you know, you see how dark it is." So he says, "So go get some water and wash your face." He says, "Rebbe, I wish I knew where I can find some of that special water to clean myself." And the son says to him, "Shmuel, just go wash your face with water, and that's that." You know, and the sons are like, you know, obviously figured out that it was the Gorlitzer that did this. When he called him and he said, "Don't do it again," you know. But look, you're right. Sometimes, like, you know, just somebody says, "Hey, why is your face so dirty?" It just could be that your face is plain and simple dirty. You know, like, you know, go get some water. Okay. Now, but then again, like, you know, in some conversations, like, you know, you just try to listen. Like, you're right, Michal. Sometimes the person is just asking what time it is, but and believe me, if I would ask you what time it is, and you would say, "Oh, Shalom, are you by any chance telling me that you've wasted so much time in your life and you don't know what to do anymore?" I would say, "Leave me alone, Michal. Just tell me what time it is." Okay.
But the way.
But nevertheless, what we're learning is that you should try to listen more deeply. Okay, that's what Rav Shlomo is saying. Try to listen more deeply.
I'm going to listen more deeply with everybody. I won't have time to do any of it.
Oh, you're very.
Oh, my goodness.
But like, how many conversations that Reb Shlomo had started off with somebody asking some mundane question like, "What time is it?" He's like, "Where are you supposed to be, brother?" You know, whatever. Like, you know, like it starts with that.
Or where do you want to be, or whatever.
Something,
Yeah,
you know. And then, sure enough, the guy's putting on tefillin every day until he dies.
Okay, so so we can all even in our small little ways, we can just sort of start listening a bit better, and learning to hear better, you know. She says, "אתם יודעים לפעמים כאשר ילד חוזר מבית הספר ואמא שלו רואה כמה הוא רעב. When a kid comes home from school and his mother sees how hungry it is, היא שואלת אותו אם הוא רוצה קצת חמת בוטנים. So she asks him if he wants some peanut butter. אתם בטח חושבים שזה מאוד מתוק, so for sure you think that this is very sweet. דעו לכם. So he says, Rav Shlomo says, no, that שהאימהות האלו הן הכישלון של הדור שלנו. These mothers are the stumbling block, or like the downfall of this, the failure of this generation. You know, when your kid says he's hungry, he's not necessarily saying that he wants some peanut butter. He's hungry because he was in school for 5 hours. Nobody gave him a kiss. Nobody told him how sweet and how special he is.
When my kids were small, were younger, when they came home, I wasn't home, but I hired some. They should ask him, they shouldn't ask, they should give him something to eat. A child is always hungry.
Good.
Good.
So you're asking what Rav Shlomo is saying. What Rav Shlomo is saying is that and this is what we were learning last week also, that we, and it was related to the whole thing with Shvat, with the whole thing about wanting more and hunger, right? And eating and stuffing, is that yes, we do experience desire, we do want more, but the more that we want is not more material. What we're experiencing is a hunger for something, for a deeper connection with Hashem. The problem is that when parents don't listen to that, when they don't hear that, and they're missing an opportunity to connect the child with a deeper connection with Hashem, and they say, "Here, ess mein Kind, here, eat something, eat something, eat something." In other words, they're teaching the children, you're hungry for food. You're hungry, it must be food that you want. It must be food that you want.
Maybe it is.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is.
Like a child's interaction with their parents is like on kind of a need basis, unfortunately. I'm telling you I'm hungry. It's a way for me to like get something from you, some attention. How many times you give your kid what they ask for? And then, oh, can I have this? Can I have that? It like never stops. And like in that case, maybe the kid didn't get enough attention at school that day or whatever. And they're not really just wanting, a sandwich. They want you to sit down with them. Or you just give them the food and let them be, and they don't ever get what they actually want. They're still hungry.
I never thought of that.
I mean, look, I'm guilty of this too, but I'm guilty of this too. But how many parents, like kids come home from school, and they just sit them down in front of a television and give them a snack and watch television, and what the kid really wants is he wants some personal attention from the parent, right? So we're giving them some kind of a substitute.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Thank God the kids grew up. When they got married, they moved out. That's their wife look after them.
I'm sure you did a great job.
Of the single parent.
I mean, you did a very good job. Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
Weren't you also a principal?
Well, I was a principal until 6 o'clock.
Right.
By the time I got home, it was 7 o'clock. No, I hired somebody. I hired a young man to be home. I didn't want my kids to be a latchkey kid.
Yeah. Okay, so.
But you're right. You're right. In my generation, men never hugged their son. My father never hugged me. He hugged my sisters, but not me.
And what about what like today kids go to school, then after school they get picked up and they're taken to this group and to that group and to that group and to that group, and the parents are hardly spending any time with them. They're just sending them off to soccer, to music, to this, to that, and these are opportunities for saying, oh, you're hungry, let's really get in touch with what you're really hungry for. Okay. She says, "Atem yedim זה ממש מוזר, it's really strange, שאנשים שקצת רעבים לקדוש ברוך הוא, some people who are a little bit hungry for God, קצת רעבים לקדושה, and they're hungry for holiness, לא מתביישים להגיד את זה. They're not ashamed to say it. אבל אלה שממש רעבים, but those who are really starving, עד ייאוש, to the point of desperation, כן מתביישים לומר את זה. They are ashamed to say this. כי הם כל כך נואשים, they're so desperate, והם לא רוצים שידעו כמה הם נואשים, and they don't want other people to know how desperate they are for it. For kedusha, for a word from God. Okay.
Maybe they didn't know themselves.
Okay, listen. Maybe he's just giving us. He's saying that in general, when you're a little bit hungry for something, you don't mind telling somebody, "Oh, can I have a glass of water?" But when you're really thirsty, when you're really starving for something, people don't like to come across and let other people know how needy they are. That's all he's saying. Okay? אנחנו חיים בעולם שבו אפשר לעשות כל כך הרבה. We're living in a world where so many possibilities are available to us. אתם יודעים, רבותיי, ההבדל שבין לרפא מישהו באופן רוחני, שכלי או אלוקי, לבין לרפא מישהו באופן פיזי, הוא מאוד פשוט. Says the difference between helping somebody, healing somebody spiritually, intellectually, or divinely, as compared to healing them physically, the difference is very simple. Physical healing takes time. ואתם יודעים למה? And you know why? כי ישנם שתי בחינות. יש את בחינת הבריאה, ויש את הבחינה שלמעלה מהבריאה. Because there's the aspect of the creation, and the aspect of that which is beyond creation. Okay, so we're going to get into that tomorrow, but basically there's lots of different, I'll just end with a little anecdote. The P.1 Rebbe, the Eish Kodesh, he was well versed in medicine as well. P.S. is a suburb of Warsaw. He's known as the rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto. He wrote that Sefer Eish Kodesh in the Warsaw Ghetto. So actually, the pharmacist in Warsaw, if somebody would come to him with a prescription that the P.S. had written, the pharmacist would fill the prescription. The pharmacist's name was Soloveitchik. I don't know which Soloveitchik he was, but in any case, he knew that the Rebbe knows a lot of medicine. So one day he's sitting and learning with his students, and the chassid comes in and he says, Rebbe, my headaches are back, and the prescription that you gave me doesn't seem to be working anymore. So the Rebbe says, well, what's wrong with it? So he takes off his hat, and I'm sure most of you are not familiar with this, but those who wear hats all the time, like this, in between the hat and the brim inside, they'll very often stick notes in there. So he takes a piece of paper out that was a prescription that the Rebbe had written to him a while back. And he says, you see, Rebbe, I sweat a lot, so the writing on your prescription has faded, and my headaches are back. So the Rebbe said, no problem. And he wrote him another prescription. And the guy folded the piece of paper, stuck it back into his hat, and he put it on. He says, oh, I feel better already. And he thanked the Rebbe, and he walked out. And the other students were like sort of chuckling. And the Rebbe says, listen, in modern medicine, this is called auto-suggestion. Right? You still use that term? Auto-suggestion. But I want you to know that what's really working with this fellow is his plain and simple, pure faith that he's receiving healing. So there's, was the person healed? Did his headaches go away? Right? Yes. Was there some kind of a physical way to determine that there was an actual change in his brain waves or whatever it is? Probably yes, if you would have a way to do it. In any case, there's a story with the Baal Shem Tov that this well-to-do man who wasn't a chassid, he just happened to be around. Maybe it was Mezhebush, whatever it was, and he had an opportunity to go and say hello to the Baal Shem Tov. So he figured, why not? It's like some people are like to be name droppers, And so he comes into the Baal Shem Tov, and Baal Shem Tov is talking with him. He says, so what can I do for you? She says, oh, nothing. I just wanted to say hello to you. So he says, well, can I give you a blessing? He says, I don't need any blessings. Do you need any advice in business? No, I don't need. I'm fine. Everything's just fine. So Baal Shem Tov says, well, then let me share something with you. And he says, okay, go ahead. So Baal Shem Tov says to him, when a doctor is doing his work, he says, it's not the doctor that's doing the healing, but rather it's the angels, the healing angels that are accompanying the doctor. And what's the difference between a regular doctor and a great doctor? So the greater doctor has more powerful angels working with him. So this guy thought, haha, very funny. But anyway, Baal Shem Tov told him, and that was that. Said goodbye. A couple of weeks later, he unfortunately happened to get very sick. And the doctors were giving up. And as it happened, the Tsar was visiting in his city, and the Tsar, doesn't go anywhere without his doctors, all these big political people. And so because he was a very wealthy man, they were able to get to the doctor and pay him a lot of money that this big doctor should come and see him. This big doctor comes to visit him, checks him out, and he says, wow, he's really sick and he needs a very, very strong prescription. He writes out a prescription, sends his sons to the pharmacy to go get it. By the time they come back with the prescription, the doctor says, wait, let me take a look at him again. Takes a look at him and he sees that there's already some improvements. And he says, well, hold on, now this prescription is much too strong for him. So he writes another prescription to a different dosage. By the time the kids come back with the second dosage, the second prescription, he takes another look at the guy. The guy is like, it's getting better, and he didn't even give him any medicine yet. So he changes the dosage again. And this went on, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. And before he even gave him any medicine, the guy's already sitting up in his bed. And the doctor says, like, what's going on here, you know? And so he says, it's very strange. A couple of weeks ago, I met this holy man, and he told me this amazing teaching about doctors being accompanied by healing angels. And that the greater the doctor, the greater the angel that's with him. So this doctor ended up becoming a disciple of the Baal Shem Tov, and he was a Ger Tzedek. He became a Yid, and he became a Rebbe in his lifetime. He was known as Avrom the Doctor. Now, if you want to hear a story about a similar story, a more modern one, okay? So I have a friend, he's up in Svat now. It's the second time in his life now that he's struggling to overcome cancer. Should be well, Moshe David Ben Tito. And so he said back in the 90s, he was so sick that he was at Mayo, this in Rochester, right? And the doctor was already ordered to stop the treatments, and they were going to send him to a hospice. Now this, he had some kind of a connection with the Square Rebbe. What was his connection? His connection was that there was this Square Chassid. He used to work in some big office in Wall Street, and this Chassid used to come every so often saying, you know, we need some playground equipment or this or that, and can we have a donation? So he'd write a check, and he wasn't like, you know, into any of these things. Anyway, one day this Chassid shows up, and he says he has a letter for him from the Square Rebbe, but the Rebbe said not to open it yet. When it'll be the time, he'll let him know to open the letter. And a number of years went by, and then my friend was diagnosed with the cancer. And this Square Chassid shows up, and he says, the Rebbe said to open the letter. And they opened the letter, and in the letter, the Rebbe said to him, if you're ready to be Mikabel Torah and Mitzvahs completely, you know, take on all religious observance, you will be healed. So he said, of course. Anyway, the doctor already had ordered that he's going to the hospice. So the Square Rebbe heard that the doctor's son to go to the hospice. He called up the doctor. The doctor said, listen, I'm the expert here. We can't do anything for this person anymore. Square Rebbe got into the car the next day, went up and had a meeting with the ethics committee, and they convinced them that they should resume treatments. And almost immediately, he started gaining a pound every day, okay? And Mamish is getting better. Like he had been down to under 100 pounds. Like they had reduced him, you know what I'm talking about, because these treatments are basically work on the basis of like kill the guy pretty much, like kill the cancer, but in the meantime they pretty much reduced the person to almost near death. And he's regaining his weight and he's getting better. And he says every night at 2:00 in the morning, he'd notice the head of the department, this guy by the name of Dr. Friedman, who was totally secular Jew. He'd come in and he'd look at him, and he'd look at him, and he'd like, shake his head, and he'd walk out. After a couple of weeks of doing this, one night Dr. Friedman comes in with a trolley loaded with papers and charts, and he says to my friend, he says, you know what this is? This is a record of everything that we've done for you over the last 2 years. He says, I've gone through every piece of paper at least 10 times. And he says, there's no medical explanation for you getting better. This Dr. Friedman is now a Satmar Chassid and Munsi. He eat with a strimel and everything, you know? And he said, there's no medical explanation for it whatsoever. So, in other words, there is a level of healing that is beyond the physical, and it affects the physical, obviously. So those are the stories that I'm leaving you with at this point. Okay? Hope to see you tomorrow. Kotiv.